Who survives? If nobody survives, then there's no millennial kingdom for Jesus to rule over, right? Somebody's got to survive, and we need some scriptural evidence if we're going to believe that anybody survives. Although Jesus did say that these days would be cut short. I know I'm getting into Matthew here. These days would be cut short for the sake of the elect. Otherwise, there'd be no life left on earth. Believers that fled from Babylon the Great. We saw in chapter 18, verse 4, God said, come out of her so that you do not fall under her wrath. All of his believers, he said, come out of Babylon the Great. And they did not receive the mark of the beast either. The righteous remnant from the nations. We're going to see in Revelation 20 that there are nations and people are still on the earth. So there is a righteous remnant of people from the nations that have not accepted the beast and not had the mark and all of that.
Some of them will be martyred, but not all.
Yeah, I'm only talking about the survivors. Martyrs don't survive. It seems elementary. I should mention that. But we're going to see them actually here in a moment. Yep. We're going to see them. Zechariah 12 and 14 also says the same thing. The physical remnant, a righteous remnant of Israel and the physical righteous remnant of the nations will survive. So not everybody's going to die. Which, yes, I realize this is difficult for the post-tribulation rapture scenario. But he thinks it's the other way. Oh my goodness. But these are physical people that are left alive on the earth. All right, let's talk about the millennial reign of Christ. 1 through 10. All right, then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, holding the key of the abyss and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he threw him into the abyss and shut it and sealed it over him, so that he would not deceive the nations any longer, until the 1,000 years were completed. After these things, he must be released for a short time. Then I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was given to them. And I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded because of their testimony of Jesus and because of the word of God, and those who had not worshipped the beast or his image, and had not received the mark on their forehead and on their hand. And they came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were completed. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is the one who has a part in the first resurrection. Over these, the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and will reign with him for 1,000 years. When the 1,000 years are completed, Satan will be released from his prison, and will come out to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for the war. The number of them is like the sand of the seashore. And they came up on the broad plain of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city, and fire came down from heaven and devoured them. And the devil, who deceived them, was thrown into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are also. And they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. All right. Obviously, we're going to deal with the millennial reign of Christ. There's too much information for me to cover in a class, even if I had the whole class. There's enough information that this could be an entire series, and often is. But here are some of the verses that pertain to some of the key passages. I didn't put in here passages that are similes or parables about what the kingdom of heaven is like. But those would also be useful, so long as you understand how to interpret a parable. But these are the key passages on the specifics of Christ. With the millennium, there are three views. Premillennial view, amillennial view, and postmillennial view. It all focuses around when is Jesus going to return. Is he going to return before the millennium, as it seems to say here? Or is he going to return after the 1,000 years? Is he going to return? Is there no millennium at all? That's the issue here. All right, now the early church started out premillennial. They believe and I'm going to go over what premillennial is here in a moment. They believe that Jesus was going to return, and then once he returns, he's going to set up a kingdom for 1,000 years. And then Satan's going to be released. And Satan will be bound that whole time. Satan will be released. But then this idea of amillennialism started into the church. Okay? It came later. It did come later. A lot of people will say that there are no premillennial voices in the early church. That is only because they haven't read. That's it. Now, that doesn't mean that we have a trump card to say, well, we have premillennial voices, because they do have some amillennial voices in the early church, but not way back in the earliest church. There are no amillennial voices. All right, premillennial chart. The tribulation happens, the millennium happens where Satan is bound for 1,000 years, and this Jesus returns here before the millennium, and then Satan is loosed, and then the great white throne judgment, and then we enter the eternal state. That's the premillennial chart. Premillennial early church voices are all of these here. They're ranging from the early, even before the Didache is an early church manuscript that was written before, likely before, most scholars are saying now, before Revelation was written. Papias, who knew some of the disciples that knew Jesus, who knew John personally, also says that he agrees with that. You would think that John would tell Papias one way or the other, or that John would correct him. Justin Martyr also, and these are all the places. You take a picture of this, look these up and go read them yourself, and you can say, I've read that. And when you argue with somebody about it, they'll say, no, it's not in there, because they haven't read it. It's that simple. Justin Martyr says the same thing, and he's 100 to 165 AD. Barnabas, who's the I should have written late 1st century to early 2nd century. He argues the same thing. Irenaeus spends a lot of chapters on the millennial reign of Christ. And I've read articles about people that say Irenaeus never said anything premillennial in his whole life. Rather, he was an amillennialist. My goodness, all you got to do is read. But here's everybody's problem. They're going to take somebody's word for it. I don't need to research that. The person I trust did the research. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Well, I did. Go read it. Tell me where I'm wrong.
I trust you.
Don't. Be a Berean.
Be a Berean.
Be a Berean. If they were following up Paul, by golly, follow up Jeremy. So the amillennial chart is there is no millennial reign of Christ. This 1,000 years, this is symbolic of the time period we're in here. Satan was bound at the cross. And Satan's not deceiving the nations anymore. We are living in the millennium right now.
The problem is, Christ lived 2,000 years ago, not 1,000 years ago.
Well, it's not a literal 1,000. That's why it's ah. Ah means no 1,000 years. It's not a real 1,000 years. Jesus will return at the end of this time in church history, which is the millennium. Okay? Now, of course, Peter said in 1 Peter that Satan goes around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. And Peter wrote that after the crucifixion and resurrection. So maybe he's on a chain. Escaping the abyss.
So are these charts in your 2 notes that you posted?
No, I didn't put the charts in the post because I don't like the charts. This one's okay. I don't like the previous one. All right, these are you can find these online. I had them in a previous presentation. Post-millennialists believe that we're going to take over the earth with Christianity. And things are only going to get better and better and better. And once things have come to a perfect place, Christ will return.
I think your line's going the other way.
Yeah. So those are the 3 views. And honestly, there are good arguments for all 3 of these. I think the best arguments are for premillennialism, which is where we're at. But let's talk about the millennial reign of Christ. Satan is bound for 1,000 years. That serpent of old. He's being identified with the serpent in Genesis 3. Now, who are the they in 20 verse 4? They were given thrones that they were going to rule on. Who? Well, we have to see that the referent is Jesus and his armies in Revelation 19, 11 through 16. And if you need to go, I did a lot better job earlier this morning. I always have more time in this class, so I take a little more time. Terry, you got to keep me accountable. If you need to go ahead and go. I'm sorry. But Jesus and his armies are the referent here. They are the ones who are going to rule. So that'd be the 12 apostles, which Jesus said in Matthew 19, 27 through... I'm bringing Matthew up all over the place. Bruce is going to lambast me. The 12 apostles were told, for you will sit on 12 thrones and judge the 12 tribes of Israel when Christ sits on his glorious throne. All the resurrected saints, Jesus follows it up by saying that everybody else will too. They will sit on and judge alongside him. In 1 Corinthians 6, 1 through 3, Paul says it. Don't you know that you're going to judge the earth? And his context is you should be able to figure out your own cases to judge with each other. Don't you know that you're going to judge the earth? You're even going to judge angels? Don't you know that? And in Revelation 2, 26 through 27 says the same thing. We're going to rule with him in his kingdom. We also get another thing in here. We have two groups here. The they here and those that died. Bruce brought it up. Those that died, that were martyred in the tribulation period, are also going to come to life and reign with Christ for 1,000 years.
Right. The gathering of the elect in that verse is the ones that have died in the tribulation and the ones that have fled to the mountains. They have to be gathered back together at the end of the tribulation.
Okay.
It's just natural.
You mean the people that survived the tribulation are going to rule?
Yeah, they've flown to the mountains. They've gone to the mountains.
I mean, but are you saying the people that survived the tribulation are going to rule over themselves?
No, they're good.
Oh, that's the context. Sorry. Yeah.
That's the gathering together.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm talking about specifically those who are going to rule. Yes.
I was going to say, do you remember some of those Old Testament passages, like he's going to send his angels out to gather all of Israel who's been scattered across all the nations?
Yeah.
Then he's going to bring them back to Israel? Mm-hmm. So that'll be at this time? When he comes back to earth?
Okay, so in Isaiah and all the promises of all Israel's going to come back to the land of Israel, and that there will be water flowing in the desert and all of that.
Bring them back?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and during the millennial reign, everything there.
when he comes back to earth.
Yeah,
It'll be at this
yeah,
time.
that's right. Jesus is going to be king. He's going to be king in Jerusalem. Okay? And the resurrected, glorified saints are going to rule alongside him. These are the people that rule. You have to have something to rule. Okay? Believing survivors are going to replenish the nations because Christ is going to rule over the nations. And as it says in many Old Testament passages, people are going to be living a long time in this time period. Even if somebody dies before 100, they'll be considered accursed. If they die at 100, they're going to be considered a youth. How old are you all? Youth. Yeah. We're all youths. That's right. No more. None of us be getting any sort of discount. I'm looking forward to them, but we'll see. Yeah. Who's the youngest one here? No, just kidding. Almost. The earth is going to be in reparation. Consider all the damage that's been done. It's going to be undergoing an Edenification. Okay? So all of the evil that's been wrought on this earth will be undone. And this earth is going to be transformed into a paradise as Eden was supposed to be. We have believers that don't sin anymore ruling over believers that do still sin, which is going to be an issue. All of the promises, Bruce, from the Old Testament are going to be fulfilled here. All of the Old Testament passages, the stuff that I had listed previously is going to be fulfilled here. Global worship and knowledge of God is going to fill the whole earth. And people are going to come back annually to celebrate. All nations will come and celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles in Jerusalem. We'll all come together as one big happy family. If they don't, they won't get any rain. That's true. That's what it says there in Zechariah. If they don't come, they won't get any rain. Which is a good picture of, during this time period, these are still sinful people, and they're going to have children who become more and more sinful or more susceptible to sins, and they'll say, well, we're not going to go do that. Why can't we try things another way? You know what we can say? We were there. It was tried that way. I appreciate what you're trying to say here, but you remember, this is God we're talking about. But that won't be satisfying them, because the serpent is going to be released again. The serpent's going to be released again into this identified, I wonder if that's a real word, identified world. He's going to be released again to deceive the nations. 1,000 years of torment has changed him none. He is going to go and deceive the nations yet again. And then he's going to be thrown into the lake of fire, where the false prophet and the beast are still. So when they get thrown into the lake of fire, they don't die. The beast and false prophet are there. And they are tormented forever and ever. And then this thing about Gog and Magog. He goes and deceives in Gog and Magog. Well, we get Gog and Magog in Ezekiel 38 and 39. And some people say that this refers to the post-millennial war. And other people say, no, this Gog and Magog refers to the pre-millennial war of where Jesus came down with the armies of heaven. But I can't tell you for sure. I can say that we're seeing the same thing in both scenarios, where a massive army is coming and God wipes them out. Yeah.
Well, studying Bible before, these guys in this context here are like stand for all the enemies of God at the end of the millennium.
Yeah, all the enemies that are left.
The Gog and Magog is 5 nations, and the end of the war is different than the Armageddon war.
Yeah, because they're burned up and consumed.
Well, in Ezekiel 38:9, it's hail, fire, earthquake, flood, and only 5-6 of them die. Not the whole army. 1/6 go back. So that's a different war.
5/6 of them. In the King James, I went in the Keep James in the King James version. All right, well that's fascinating. That's why I'm not taking a stance one way or the other.
In there, it says believing survivors replenish the nations, and then they're not sinless, correct? So, the serpent is released again to deceive. So that happens once the serpent is released again, where they start sinning, or they start sinning before.
Oh, the sinning is going to be a continual thing. Just like we're sinning today.
So it has nothing to do with the serpent being.
No, the thing is, look, if you're going to be a sinner, this is the best condition to be a sinner in, because you're going to have people who've been there and done that. Okay? And you know what? There's not going to be... but are now set right. There's not going to be any internet pornography to tempt people, or whatever tempts you. It will be gone. Okay? So this is a great time to be a sinner. I mean, in terms of overcoming your sin and not giving
temptation.
Yeah, people.
So that kind of proves that where the argument that everything that we sin is because Satan makes us do it. It's not.
Oh no, it's not that. James chapter 1 crushes that as well.
I'm only saying that a lot of people say that it's because Satan is caught, but it's not. We're born that way.
Better to take the blame for your own sin than pass it off on another.
Right. So it's not. It's just a natural
nature.
thing in us.
Yeah. So then we're going to get the great white throne judgment. Thank you for hanging with me. My goodness. Here we go. Chapter 20, verse 11. Then I saw a great white throne and him who sat upon it, from whose presence earth and heaven fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, the great and the small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged from the things which were written in the books, according to their deeds. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead which were in them. And they were judged, every one of them, according to their deeds. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire.
So the lake of fire is hell?
The lake of fire is the second death. Hades is hell. But we do use hell interchangeably with lake of fire.
Hades and death are thrown into
But yeah, it'd be death and hell are thrown into the lake of fire.
Okay, so people who don't believe in Jesus, they're going into the lake of fire.
Yes, people that don't believe in Jesus are going into the lake of fire. So the second resurrection is the resurrection of all unbelievers. Okay, and they're going to be judged. There's two books. The books of deeds and the book of life. And yeah, Bruce, I hear you sighing over there. It could be those that died also in the millennial reign of Christ that are also resurrected at that time. Could be them. But the focus here is on the unbelievers. So they're judged by their deeds, the books of deeds and the book of life. The lake of fire is the second death, but those that are not written in the book of life are judged according to their deeds. You know, some people say, well, hopefully I'm good enough. They will be judged according to that.
It's been said that people who are in that predicament, they will wish that they had committed one less sin. That's how fine and exact Christ's judgment is.
Yeah. Now, consider this, though. There are degrees of punishment. Jesus tells us that in Matthew 10:15, 11:22 through 24, and Luke 10:14. Woe to you, O Chorazin, for it will be better for Sodom than for you at the judgment. So there are degrees of judgment. Now, I don't know, I can't tell you what those are. The Bible doesn't tell us what those are. The Bible just tells us, though, that anyone whose name was not written in the Lamb's book of life is thrown into the lake of fire.
And there are scriptures that hint that the shaft is burned up. In other words, so that if you're not a religious leader who's deceived the unbelievers, then if you just rejected Christ, I believe it could be just burned up. But those that deceived, like it says, receive greater damnation, what Jesus said. So, like you said, various punishments.
Yeah. I don't know, though. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try and tell you I know all things about this. I know this. There's a distinction. Those who are in the book of life and those who are not. Only those in the book of life will make it. Will have salvation.
Same thing with believers. There's
Yeah.
distinction.
Yeah, all believers. And that includes the Old Testament saints as well. Old Testament saints, we are all saved the same way. By grace, through faith. Okay? Jesus' blood covers all of their sins, those in the past, the Old Testament, and our sins in the present and into the future. God is above time and space. He can come and die whenever He wants, and it can cover everything. Right? All right. Finally, death and Hades are thrown into the lake of fire. So, this is the former things are passing away. New things are coming on the horizon. Okay? So and that's where we're going next week. We're going to cover all that. But here are some applications. There are many to be had in reading this. Accept that the Bible is above denominational opinions and be comfortable with mystery. That's my advice to you. There are so many views on this. So many views. Bruce, I'm convinced that you and Dan and some others know exactly how it's going to go down. Is it possible? Russell too.
No, I'm still up in the air.
Russell's still up in the air. Oh, Russell's been raptured. He's up in the air. Ha! There's your post-millennial. I mean, post-trib, yeah.
We know what the Bible says about it.
That's probably the best I think any of us can do is say that we know what the Bible says about it. I have seen many people fall into a denominational trap or into a dispensational trap, even within dispensationalism, which is where Dallas Theological Seminary is, which is where I went to seminary. We know all things about the end times. Except these professors over here say, wait a minute, we've been backing something that we can't even find in Scripture, and we're not going to do that anymore.
Right.
Which is the right way to be. So I don't latch on to anybody and say, they've got it right. I'll take a piece.
Yeah, but we're supposed to be...
Is that all from Schofield?
No,
Bible?
not. I mean, Schofield's a piece in it,
I mean, with Dallas.
and Louis Sperry Schaefer.
Oh, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Be able to come to a comfortable, belief, because we're supposed to, not be tossed by every wind of doctrine.
Right.
You got to be able to be settled upon, your conviction at some point.
At some point, but if the Bible is saying there's mystery,
Yeah, well, yeah.
then we should be careful how tightly we hold. I mean, I'm not going to go up to an amillennialist and say, I'm dying on my premillennial hill. You're a false teacher and a heretic. You will burn in the fires of the lake of fire. For your amillennial view. I will not do that. I will break bread with them.
I would just suggest in this case, the more focused you get on either a dispensational view or a literal interpretation, or the fact that you know this or that, or that you've concluded this or that, you're liable to miss something when the time is most important.
That's a good point. But the cool thing about it is if we are there, we'll know then. Sure. We'll be able to point and say that. And you know what? When we're past it, we will all be in agreement then. There'll be no doubt about it. You need to realize how powerful God is. With just the words of his mouth, he gets victory. Dead. Okay? That is power. The powers of this earth are nothing. Nothing at all. The sum of the powers of this earth are nothing. And here's the thing. Look, I think in our background, people are afraid to read some of these earliest church fathers because they're afraid that they're all Roman Catholics, and none of them are. The Roman Catholic Church did not exist back then. The Catholic Church existed back then. And I am a member of the Catholic Church, and so are you. But I'm not a member of the Roman Catholic Church. Amen. We are part of the universal church, whatever denomination. That's it. And that's what these guys were. And some of these guys knew the actual apostles, or they knew people that knew the apostles. That's why I used them to point to say, we're not crazy. We didn't just come up with this. This is what they believed long ago. Okay? I'd say also give grace to other Orthodox views. Everybody's saying Jesus is returning bodily. They want to say that it's post or there is no. That's fine. I give grace to them. I'm not going to say, as some have done, as some that I've seen, some pastors will say, if you're a premillennial, if you believe in the pre-tribulation rapture, they're also premillennial. If you believe in the pre-trib rapture, in fact, it's this post-millennialist guy that I like. He said, if you believe in the pre-trib rapture, you're a heretic, not even a believer.
Right, and what's great, and it's just it's exactly.
Oh, the other way around too, yeah. No, Dallas won't do that. I went there. Oh, some pastors, yeah, but the seminary itself will not. There's nothing they can do about pastors. There's nothing they can do about me. I'm coming from them. I could be saying that today. But the professors there will say, you either believe this or you don't. Just follow me, what I'm saying, and then if you want to believe whatever you want to believe it. Go for it.
But I'm just saying, I would say this. That
It goes both ways.
The pastoral group out of the Dallas Theological Seminary, I would pose to you that probably 70-80% of them are definitely the pre-trib. And they will, if you even, they won't argue with you. You could be armed to the teeth, like you take my friend Shane with your knowledge, which is what he has, and be able to go backwards and forward, just talk about it. They won't even talk to him.
That's useless.
They really will run him off.
It's useless not to talk. So, but I'd say give grace. There's a lot of mystery, and not one of us has it all figured out. And all the problems that the world's trying to solve today, whatever they may be, environmental, geopolitical, energy, it's all going to be solved. But it's not going to be solved here. And you're going to have an amazing work to do in the millennial reign of Christ, and even after that. You're not going to be sitting there on a cloud playing a harp.
That makes Kimberly happy. Yeah, electric guitar.
Yeah, electric guitar. That's right. You are going to be doing work, a good work. Work where it prospers. Okay? You can't get fired. And you will no longer be fettered by the issues that we all have of mortality and of sinfulness. That will be gone from us.